Today's class is part of the business development series, 6 of them. Last week was the one that we had with Brian. Today I'll be covering the steps to starting a business. Quickly we went through some of the things that we were going to talk about today, and this is what the class is going to consist of. Let me just go back here for a second. So we're going to cover quite a bit. Touch on many of these points, but throughout the class you will be going through and learning more in depth about all of these things. Today, deciding on your business idea, we'll talk about teams, the assistance you need, the legal structure, registering your business name, a start about the issue about how to identify your target market, a little bit about financial needs, some key marketing strategies, why and how you write a business plan, and set up in tax reporting and accounting. So you don't need to take heavy notes because we're not going to be going in depth with all of these things. It is quickly an overview about all of the things that you're going to learn, so stay tuned to the rest of the classes and we'll be covering them. Last week, Brian had talked a little bit about why do you want to become an entrepreneur, and these are the top 5 reasons why people start their own business. Some of you already alluded to some of them. You like the idea of flexibility of being your own boss. No one mentioned, but everybody knows, it is about making money. Having some control over your decision making. You get a chance to work with the people or the team you want to work with. For many of you, it might be your family who are just keen to support people. And then some of you have such interesting ideas, you might actually be leaving a little bit of a footprint in your legacy with what you develop and how you start to grow a business. So, first thing, you all have, hopefully, family, friends surrounding you. Perhaps you have agency support. Maybe you did have agency support before COVID. It is really a very good thing for you to understand right out of the gate when you start a business. You don't have to think, and you don't want to be, and you do not need to be alone. When you start a business, everyone needs to have a business team. So as it says, a successful business team should consist of individuals with a different range of skills. So in your family, maybe someone is good at accounting and you're not. Maybe someone is really good with coming up with graphic ideas. Maybe it's not even in your business. Maybe it's a neighbor. Maybe it's a family friend. So the reason to touch on this right now is this is a good time for you to think about the fact that you should know you don't have to do it alone. You shouldn't think about doing it alone, and there are people out there who are willing and happy to help you. Yes, in your circles, but also in ours. So we're going to get to talk a little bit about that. Of course, you're going to need an individual range of skills, different knowledge bases, and the people who you've been associated with, you may find that many of them are just out there and ready to listen to you if you have a question or need a little hand-holding. And the folks here at the DD Council are certainly willing, able, and very prepared to help. So take a look at who can help you with your business. Everyone initially thinks about family, friends, neighbors, and staff to give you advice, give you hands-on support, sometimes even money. Apart from that, there are advisors and something for you to start thinking about. You don't have to identify them now, but just start thinking. The RIDD business people and project staff. You're talking about Sue, Sheila, Claudia, myself. You have people who are with the SBA, better known as the Small Business Administration. There are lawyers. We even have one on our staff who's willing to help and give you some counsel if you need it. CPAs to help you with accounting. Insurance professionals. Maybe there's already one in your family. There's a company or a group organization called SCORE, Senior Corps of Retired Executives, and they're willing and able to help provide some support for the different aspects of your business as you go along. Some of you might even have other relationships with people who might make you think you might want to start a partnership with them. So, good idea to get business assistance and training. So yes, you're going to have 6 classes here from the Business Development series. You might also find other people who, even if they aren't on your team or on your advisory board, they're still around to help you, to give you a little advice. Maybe they're just entrepreneurs who started their business and have done pretty well. They can share with you the challenges and things that they've overcome. Maybe some of them are willing to assist you. I think probably our crew here who has a I don't know, 50 people or so who've gone through the classes, and some of them have become very successful. Some of them are just starting. Some of them are evolving their businesses. Many of them are willing to share their stories too. And as it's listed here, Sue, Claudia, and Sheila, they are there and available to help you. As part of this program, Brian, a woman named Selena who you meet, I am available. All of us are available to help you too as you go along. And usually by talking to Sheila or Claudia or Sue, they can best direct who you should be connecting with next. So just know you're not in it alone. So, of the things that you need to do, thinking about, what kind of business structure you're going to have. When people start a business, many start out small. They start out as what they call, you're good, thank you so much. They start out as a sole proprietorship. You're an individual entrepreneur. You go into business for yourself, so they call you a sole proprietorship. By far, this is one of the easiest ways of doing it. As was also mentioned, some people have partnerships, some people start corporations, different kinds of corporations. We're going to go through those. We'll be talking about a name for your business. Some of you aren't even sure just yet what you're going to do for a business, so I know you don't have a name for your business. And then others of you are already in business, so we're going to be talking to some of you who've already started a business and have a name already to see what you've done and how you've gone about taking some promotional steps or maybe even protecting your name. How many owners? So right off the bat, maybe it's just you. That's okay. Maybe you'll have a partner, maybe you won't. We'll talk about that too. And where and when and how do you sell your products or services we're going to cover today. Do you need capital? Everybody needs money. Sometimes you just need a little of it. Sometimes you need a lot. Good to point out to you right now that people who go through this class have access to what was a fund of money for grants, and Sue will be one who will tell you more about that going forward. So it really is worthwhile for you to stick with the class, develop your business, do the plan, and then you get to know what you actually might need the money for. They're really very helpful. Sue's very helpful in getting people to have access to grants to help them with their business. But the place that we're going to start with is what most people do. Most people have a sole proprietorship. And the reason they do it, because it's the fastest, it's the easiest, it's the least time consuming, it's the cheapest. Oh yes, but there are disadvantages too, so we're going to go through some of them. All right. You as a sole proprietor, yes, you own the business, yes, you control every facet of it, and if there are troubles, the troubles are yours too. But nevertheless, small businesses, craft shops, people who are starting to sell juices or even candles, very likely a sole proprietorship works for you. It's the opposite of unincorporated. It is totally, completely just sole proprietorship and has very few, or the fewest, governing regulations. Good idea means you have less paperwork, less time consuming in terms of handling documentation. The downside of it is clearly that you are personally liable. If you're making candles, perhaps there isn't a heavy liability, financial or otherwise, but it certainly means that if there were debts that you caused for your business, you bought things, and then you decided you didn't want to pay, the fact is, yes, you do have to pay, and you are personally liable for it. There are disadvantages too in terms of you needing to get access to cash. They talk about it in terms of getting access or financing. Sole proprietorships really rely on every single nickel, dime, and quarter that you ever had. Your personal bank savings, checking account, investments, your little retirement plan if you're of a certain age, every single bit of that money is now liable and is needed and required for you to put forth if you have to buy things, because very often a bank isn't going to be willing to just fork over money. You've heard of collateral, perhaps. The idea is if you are a single business owner and maybe you own a house and you're not incorporated, that usually means that that bank wants to lay claims to that house if you didn't pay your money back. If you pay it back, not a problem. It's one of the downsides of it. It's something that you want to be careful of, because there are times when if you think you're going to have high expenses Or if there's high risk involved, that may not be the best choice. So one of our folks here, it's our lawyer, the person who wants, John Moffat, yes, the one who wants to start a law firm, very likely he could not even begin to consider being a sole proprietorship because the risk there is too high. Risk to him personally, and also clients really who would come to him would prefer to know that he has the protection and he is valid, reliable, substantial enough to be an incorporated business. But for so many of you, sole proprietorship is a very reasonable way for you to begin your business. It's also the easiest one in the taxing of everything that you sell. Partnerships, we can go back to the partnerships for a moment. So partnership, just like you might imagine, it means that there are 2 or more people in the business. It too has advantages, as it says. There's no formal filing if you have a general partnership. It too has a downside, which means there's unlimited liability to a partnership. That means you're potentially at risk financially. With a partnership, easy to form. Unlimited liability is the downside. Shared responsibility, if you have a partner, you have a division of labor. That's good. Also, on the downside, it means that those profits and losses are going to be shared and have a corresponding value to each, 50%, 30, 70, or however you set that up. With a partnership, you can have increased tax potential. It says ease of operation, but mostly because that's a division of labor for you. It may be, bless you, it may be something that works for you if you have maybe even your mom or your spouse is a partner at times. The downside is it says partners are bound by each other's decisions. You hope that the partner that you choose will be in sync with your decisions. But if you're not, it can be complicated. It can also be complicated to leave that situation without troubles. I think I don't need to mention them, but there are the personal issue, there's the financial issue when you have partners who are bound and then don't want to be any longer. So there's the downside of forming a partnership. Okay, Sheila, if you can advance to the next slide, that would be helpful. So what people most often talk about are the more complicated options of a corporation, an S-corp, or a limited liability. So corporations, a C-corp is what corporation usually stands for. S-corp is the other kind. Main difference, the main difference between those two entities is one word, taxes. It's about taxes. So if you have a corporation, you pay tax on your income plus tax on whatever income the owner or the employee of a corporation makes. If you have an S corporation, both are incorporated, S corporation means that you're not paying taxes. You're only paying taxes on the money that you report, and it's taxed at a lower rate as your personal income. So many people who say, yes, I'll incorporate a business, they do so, but first think of it as doing an S-corp because it saves them money. Both are incorporated, both have a corporate shield. The reason people incorporate in the first place is so that they have a barrier between their personal home and their personal risk and their personal bank account and the corporation. If something happens with your employee and there's an injury or something happens, you're likely to be sued. And what the corporate shield, as they refer to it as, what the corporate shield does is it protects you from your personal liability. Your corporation can be sued, but you can't. You won't be losing your house. So, for example, I can speak about my own business. I have a marketing, advertising, PR agency. It's been around for more years and more decades than I care to talk about. But the fact is, because I am buying media on a national and an international basis, I certainly needed to be incorporated. Larger companies want to see it. If I needed to have a bank loan, they would appreciate the fact that I have a corporation and have the stability that reflects. But also it means that if somebody ever sued me, they won't be suing me, they'd be suing my company, which is Communication Works, and my house and my livelihood and my personal bank account wouldn't be placed at risk. So it's a good thing for you to consider when it comes to that. The LLC that we mentioned, LLC stands for Limited Liability Corporation. It's a very popular choice too. It gives you the protection of a corporation, a little bit more the ease of proprietorship, but it also gives you a little tax flexibility. Income in that case is a pass-through, makes taxing easier too. So in order of pecking order, sole proprietorship is probably the easiest. An LLC has the advantages without the heavy corporate burden. An S Corp, if you have to do it, and a C Corp is probably the largest and most cumbersome to deal with. If you are needing help in deciding anything other than being a sole proprietor, talk with a business professional or one of the business resource advisors on the project, and certainly we can help walk you through the variables to see what would work best for you and what seems most reasonable at the place that you are in your business life. Okay, want to go to the next? Choosing and registering a business name. It's so important. What's in a name? Everything. Choosing a good name for your business really does matter. The idea is that it bears consideration. It makes sense that you want to have something that is catchy, as was mentioned. It's marketable. And also, if you can, that it's infused with personality and it makes sense. And gee, sounds like a lot. How do you figure that out? You can surf the web, find other companies that are somewhat like what you're doing, might give you an idea. Also, the other thing that Google can help you find out is whether or not the name that you think is terrific, whether or not it's already been taken, because you wouldn't want to have one and settle on it and make business cards and stationery and then find out, oops, somebody else has it and they had it before you and they don't like the idea that you're using it. So use the web to check things out. You know, once upon a time, people actually used to look at the dictionary. Not that you're likely to do that, but people used to look at the dictionary to see if they could find a word or a name that came to mind that might want to associate with their business. So we mentioned team before. It's a great idea. Bounce the ideas off your friends, off your family, other people who are in this class. It's a great time to do it. You can look at trade magazines. Maybe you've online seen, if you are making arts and crafts, there are arts and crafts magazines. You might be able to see and get some swell ideas about what might go or become a good name for you. Always a good...
What if you want to use your, what if you want to use your own name?
How about it? What would be the problem with that? I don't think you're going to have a problem about it already being registered as a business already, right? Because it's as unique as your name is. That could happen. So would it be Mary Jones's what? And many people do that. Even, law firms use it all day long. That is a very common thing. And every time someone becomes a partner, they add on the name. It's a very good idea to consider using Mary Jones's wax candles, so-and-so's photography.
Yeah.
It can follow you everywhere, and that's certainly a very viable thing. It may be something that keeps you from having to go to do a deep dive and check out to find whether or not there's a similar name in the state of Rhode Island or in the country. Because by the time you have chosen your name, you do need to register it. And checkri.gov is one way to find out if it's available. And if it's your name, very likely that becomes a moot point. Very likely you're safe with that. When you are thinking about picking out a name, you want something that's clever. Yes, you have to check with RI. You also might find that a trademark search will make sure that nobody else is using even something that's close to a logo that you have. County clerk's office can get you through so many of these things very quickly, but you can do so much of it online, which is amazing because nobody wants to go out these days. It's very easy for you to see online if it's being used. Good thing to do. When people talk about the legal name of your business, if you were incorporated, the name of your business suddenly becomes whatever it is, INC or LLC. If you aren't incorporating and you're a sole proprietor, you might likely be a DBA, better known as doing business as. Very common. It's reasonable to at least say that when you start a business, it's a bona fide business, you really do want to have your own checking account. And it might have, if you're a sole proprietor, it might have John Moffat or Marcy Martinez as the top name, as your checking account does now, except it would then say DBA, doing business as, the name of whatever your company is. And that's one way for you to keep good track, keep things separate. It's a reasonable thing to think about. Don't worry about it right now. We'll be talking more about it later. But in either case, DBA, doing business as, also has a very strange name. It's also called a fictitious business name. You're not fictitious, but sometimes it's called a fictitious business name or an assumed business name. It sometimes has a little pejorative thing about it, but don't let it. It really is just simply doing business as, and it's something that most of the entrepreneurs use, at least to start up. Any questions so far? Okay. Is the name, does it give you a clear understanding of what business has to offer? Thank you once again, Deanne, because it's a good idea, and then it had encountered a few issues about people not quite understanding. Bounce it along, have your own little private focus groups, and see what people have to think about it, have to say about it. Is it catchy and memorable? And should I combine it with the logo? Most people do end up coming up with some simple graphic. What is on that PowerPoint right now are such well-known logos, except for Johnson & Johnson, which uses its name as its logo. Every single one of those pictures or graphics, I bet you, would know what the company was right without saying the name. That 4 squares up in the top, Microsoft, you know what that is. The Colonel, you know who he is. So people use that for an immediate identification. It makes their business name stand out. It makes their recognition faster and easier for people. And it also builds some rapport with people. They get to feel warm, soft, and fuzzy about that big D on their cup. So Deanne's Building Bridges, if that's the name of a company, a tagline, which is a small description under the name, might go a long way to helping people be more clear and more precise in what it is that you do or for whom you do it. So Disneyland has a little tagline there. It says, "Where dreams come true." I think that everyone thinks of Disneyland as a place that captures imagination. That tagline often is a good way to help build some credibility and also identification about what you are, who you are, and what you're doing. Any question about America runs on Dunkin'? Everyone who gets up in the morning who wants Dunkin', they think of that tagline and those 4 icons, or 3 of those icons anyway, that are pretty popular. But it really does begin with, what are you going to call yourself? What is your name going to be? You know you want something that is you, distinctive. It may be your name. That's okay, and it's certainly going to be memorable. I think it does matter if it's easily spelled or pronounced, certainly, to a point that was made earlier. If you have an opportunity to include in that name or suggest in that name what the product or service is that you're offering, that's terrific. And if you have a way of distinguishing what you're doing from your competitors, our candle folks who said old time scents, they've already given the impression, without our really even seeing their works yet, you have an idea about who they are, what they sell, based on what their name is. So they're off to a good start too. So it's a good thing. I think it would be good for me to share with you that there are places that you can check to see if there are other names and even ideas for graphics. Yes, we mentioned the internet, and yes, you all know Google, but also there's a thing called ThomasNet, ThomasNet.com, and if you are doing things with the motors, I believe one of our participants is interested in that, very likely you can search and find by product or service something that's akin to what you're doing that might give you some good ideas about what you might want to have for a name or use for a logo. If you are on the search and on the hunt of and want resources apart from people who you're speaking to, ThomasNet, ThomasNet.com, and Network Solutions, NETWORKSOLUTIONS. We'll type them and send them out to you later. Both of those things are sources for you to check out names, graphics, and what you might want to do with coming up with a name and a logo. So, now that you've launched a business, what are your startup costs? Hopefully, if you're a sole proprietor, you have minimal startup costs, but you will have some. So, what might they be? And when do you get to make some cash? One of the things from the time we started these classes, and I've taught so many other entrepreneurship and commercialization classes, there's the idea of how this works, but this class and this series of class, quite honestly, in the times that we've run it, Sue has always made sure that we work very quickly to help you launch the business and start to generate some sales and generate some cash. So if you're excited about having a business, I'm going to tell you, you will have expenses, but how about the idea that once you get an idea together, what you want to do for your business, we're going to help you as best we can and as quickly as we can to help you launch if you're able to do that. And even in the middle of COVID, or near the end of COVID, I could only hope, online gives you an opportunity, we'll be going through that too, to give you some quick ways to learn how to generate some cash and make some sales. So we'll be looking to do that. Plan for additional money you may need if revenues are late and expenses are higher than expected. You'll be putting together a financial plan, an idea about your costs and your sales and your projections. And I can tell you that for the number of years I've done it, it's always a great thing to have that guide, but then life happens. Things happen. Your revenues might be larger than you expected, less than you expected. The payments are different time than you expected. Things happen. So it's a good idea to put that plan together because it helps you and guides you through and helps you plan for contingencies. So maybe you need to get money for investing, for maybe some equipment that you need or some supplies. The fact is you're going to have to be very clear about what you want to use the money for. Most banks will demand that you have a checking account, and it's very important for you to look to establish a relationship with a banker. So much of this is done online. Years ago, people used to walk in and shake hands with their bank manager. Well, those shaking hands usually happen online right now. So even the entrepreneurs that we've worked with in past classes, many of them had online, many of them did not, and once COVID hit, almost everyone had to confront the issue of shipping and mailing or curbside pickup or whatever they needed to do, but somehow that became a factor, whether planned for or not planned as much as they needed to. But startup costs often are things that you really need to consider, especially now because most people are needing to deal with online. Another thing,
your cost will go up. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Your cost will go up. Like during COVID, when we had to go outside sources, not our usual sources,
yes,
we paid more money.
yes,
So then now that factors into what you're making profit-wise on your product. So that was a hard lesson.
And we
So
usually invest profits into like bigger ordeals too. It like goes back.
we try to
into business.
we reinvest the profit.
Although it's
wise. How wise of you. Boy, you get the A and the 5 stars for the class today. That's great. That's great. That's really terrific. I can tell you from a marketing standpoint that typically when people talk about the cost of packaging, the number had been at one point not long ago that packaging alone could add up to 33% of the cost of the product that you were making. And
Absolutely.
it is what it is, as they say, but if you haven't planned for that or incorporated that into the side of the ledger, which is how much am I going to charge for that widget, you can find yourself in a very unfortunate, unhappy, unprofitable situation, which is one of the reasons why we do these financing portions, to help you anticipate as much as you can.
Great.
It's good. Thank you. How about if we continue then? Let's see, what's next? Next week, here's a foreshadowing of next week. We are going to be talking about an elevator pitch, and I'm sure that many of you have watched television programs that talk about what an elevator pitch is.
Oh yeah.
Its definition, the quick summary about what your business idea is. How did it come about? You should be able to go through that speech in the time it takes you to get in the elevator, put hit the button and get to the ground floor. That means it demands that you have it be very succinct. And you don't start out with it being succinct. Anyone who goes through the process usually has 7 or 8 sentences, and then they redline them and make them tighter and tighter and tighter. But floor 1, who are you? Second floor, what do you do? 3, what makes you unique? 4, how do you do it? Who does it affect? Why? Those are the essentials. And it's important enough that you have that, yes, written, then practiced, because on countless occasions you will have, not necessarily in an elevator, you'll have a very short period of time to let somebody know what you are, what you do, and why you're better than the next guy, so they don't go to the next guy. But I can't tell you how important it is that you get to be very comfortable with who you are, what you do, why it makes a difference, so that someone can think about you as they leave and remember your name and why you're better, why you should be considered. When we talk about them a little bit later on, I can tell you that many have often included in their pitch that the reason they do something is that they had a passion for it. I had worked with one, not Dunkin' Donuts, but a person who had a passion. My passion is donuts. And by the time she gave that little elevator speech, you wanted her donuts, even if you knew about Dunkin'. Marketing strategy and developing one is key to your business, because people, you need to think about who you need to target, who is likely to be your best prospect to buy whatever it is that you have, so that you can make money. How you communicate with someone, who you choose to communicate with, how you end up connecting with them so that they remember who you are, why your product is better, why they want to think about you when they want to think about buying something. Customer engagement, that's what that is. So thinking about who your target customer is, an important issue, one that we're going to be covering just in the marketing piece alone. What's the unique benefit of your business? Why does your product really set you apart from somebody else, and why is it really what the customer wants? Many people have very different benefits that go to different target audiences. What does that mean? Sounds highfalutin. So what you sell, if you're selling cereal, what you sell to the child, namely a great sugar treat, might be very different than you sell to mom, who's interested in maybe the cost, maybe its nutritional value. If you have all three, those are your unique benefits, but they're said in different ways to different people at different times, and it matters that you know who you're talking to. At the beginning of this class, I think someone had said, it was about the mother and child, that they had a sense of what it was like, what a mother and child would need. I think that's the start of crafting what your targeted message is to mom who might be using your services. Last thing that's listed there, and it's a brief thing that I want to talk about, who is your competition? Many people, believe it or not, when they start businesses say, there's no competition, my business is just that unique. I think maybe many of you don't think that way. There is competition. Identifying it and knowing how to set yourself apart, why you're different, why you're better, makes the difference between why someone thinks and buys you versus someone else. Any of you who've ever gone to a restaurant, you always want to, or if you own a restaurant, the one thing you want to be is in the top 5 of the named restaurants that people think of when they want to go out to dinner, or if they want to order online these days. If you know what your competition is doing, whether it's a certain kind of food that they have, a certain price that they have, a certain special that they offer, knowing what your competition is doing gives you a whole lot of information to figure out what you need to do to compete effectively. Maybe it's a better price, maybe it's a different style of product. Knowing what your competition is and what he does, what they do, goes a long way to helping you craft your message and beat out your competition. The name of the game in making money. So on your screen, you see write a business plan in question mark. Actually, it really is write a business plan with an exclamation mark, maybe 2 or 3, because it is absolutely critical that you have one. A roadmap, where you're going and how to get there. You know, it helps you stay on track for what you need to do for your business. The big brush strokes about it, essentially, what is your business? Why are you in business? What are you going to do with your business? Who are you going to sell to? How much money do you think you can make? How are you going to get that done? How are you going to set up books? All of that is like a little, no, it's a big guide to keep you on track so that you know how to conduct your business and hopefully make it as successful as it possibly can be. It's a plan, but it's a plan that's sort of a moving target because, as I mentioned earlier, often things change. COVID happens. That would change your sales plans for certain, sure. A plan is just something that is your guide to keep you on track. It increases your chances for success, helps you track where you've been. If you made a list, in January I'm going to sell 10 widgets, February 12, 13, 14, 15, well, as you look back on it, you get to track, I sold 14 on January, I sold too few in February, what happened and what am I going to do about it? That's how you get to have a good plan that will grow with you as your business expands. It's just a good guide to help you stay on track. And more importantly, if you ever need financing from a bank or a grant, they absolutely insist upon it. I have someone who's near and dear to me who's a little bit older than I am, who's had several businesses, and he tells me quite proudly he never had a business plan. He could just walk into the bank, tell them he needed money, how much, they shook hands, and he walked out with a check. I wish I could tell you as an entrepreneur that your days would be like that, but I absolutely should be shot. The fact is you absolutely have to have something that's in writing, that's in black and white, that attests to the fact that you have a plan and you know where you're going, so they can believe in you too. Evaluate and develop your business idea. Are there people who want or need my services? That's marketing. We're talking about that. Who's my competition and what makes me different? Yes, you'll be thinking about that elevator plan, elevator pitch and marketing plan. And how will you market your business? A couple of weeks from now we're doing that. Where are you going to sell your products and services? That's also about marketing. How much money do you need when I get started? To get started? That's in finance and business, a couple of weeks down the road. And how much, here's a bottom line everybody wants. How much money can I make in the first year? Actually, we hear how much money can I make in the first month. We're going to see if we can guide you through that. One whole session is set to, can you go back one, please? Thanks. The importance of and the how-to of tax reporting and accounting. Earlier on, we talked about how you set up a business. You won't be surprised to know that the internet, especially the RI.gov, has how to set up taxes, what you need to know about getting sales permits for if you're selling, how you set up and file for your business. It's all quite easy to do online. It wasn't always that way, but it is. It is now. So in the coming weeks, you'll be thinking about how to set up an accounting or a bookkeeping system. I can't tell you how many people who participate in this say, that's the worst, that's the one I don't want to do, that's the one I don't know how to do, that's the worst. If it is, fear not, there's help. Obviously we need your input, but people can help you set up an accounting or a simple bookkeeping system. It says QuickBooks, Quicken, there are many online programs that will help simplify it once it's set up, and we'll go through the paces to help you learn how to set up a system. And once you do, just keeping it up is usually pretty easy. One of the things that this will help you do in the class, help you to schedule, how to document your sales and your expenses. You want to know if things change, if you have more expenses than you thought you'd have when you're selling something. Good to know, and it will also be a feeder for your business plan. How to read financial statements, not always the sexiest thing in the world, but important for you to learn if you are thinking about going into business. That will be in a couple of weeks too. And good thought, when you do set up your business bookkeeping and accounting system, even now, I've been doing it for years, review that financial statement every month to find out whether you're on track and find out what you need to do if you're not. Very helpful to helping you make good management decisions. And good management decisions is really the overall reason why someone would put together a business plan. It may be a marketing issue that you come up with, it may be a financial issue, but to make good, sound business management decisions, having that plan goes a long way to help you identify if you have problems and how to fix them even if you do. In this class that's to help you start a business, the goal, of course, is for you to figure out what your own career interests are and what your passions are. Those things help direct what your business should be about. Do what you love and love what you do. It's an adage that's very popular. We're going to try to help you get there and launch a business to do it. To helping you take charge of developing your self-employment roadmap, yes, it's a business plan. Yes, it's a marketing plan. It's all of those facets. Plan each step for success and a better financial future. That certainly is what this is about. We're excited about your future. We hope that you are too. We're really positive about it. I can tell you that even people who've participated in past classes, they've been positive, and we've continued to work with them through our networking Zooms, not in person these days, but in Zooms, so that we can help to give some assistance directly or even some feedback with the others who've been in the class who have some swell ideas that they've been willing to share. We hope you're going to find that the rewards are worth it. We certainly have seen some very interesting and good success stories, and we'll be looking forward to sharing them. Okay, things to remember. It's the recap time. Choose a good name. Research and focus on the target market. Yes, we will be spending a good amount of time, that in 2 weeks, I believe. We hope that you're staying tuned to the rest of these classes because you will learn more about business and business development, more importantly, how to develop your business. I'm not sure that you all have a team in place yet, because that's usually a work in progress. But we will be happy to speak with you about it and maybe help add some people to it if you are finding some gaps, if you don't have someone who has a special skill set that you need. Use resources available through this project and in Rhode Island. So whether it's SCORE that we talked about, SBA, CWE, RIDDC, everything that we do here, we're really very happy to help, and there are more resources than we can share on this quick PowerPoint, but happy to help pace you through them once you have specific questions. Use your business plan. Yes, update it often. Some people only do that once a year. I would say to you that my suggestion, and it's a heartfelt one at that, every 3 months it's worth looking at. You may not need to make a change, but very often, especially in your first year of business, it's good to keep an eye on it closely, but you may need to update it as often as 3 months. Commit to continuous learning about your business industry. Yes, so as we say, even our Zooms that happen on Thursdays for our graduates, so to speak, it's a great opportunity for them to continuously learn and share and network, and hopefully that will continue to be supportive of you folks as you move on.